Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was rejected by Kakashi and joined Team 8? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Hey Kakashi sensei, can you train me today? Asked a hopeful Naruto. No Naruto, I told you, you have to work on that chakra control before I teach you anything. I'm training Sasuke today, Kakashi said casually as he and Sasuke left, leaving Naruto and Sakura behind. Of course you do, because there's only one member on a team, the blonde thought sarcastically. Hey, Sakura, do you? No, I don't want to go out with you, Sakura snapped as she stomped away. I only wanted to train, not mentally scar myself, mumbled the blonde as he walked away with a look of disgust on his face. The thought of dating the pink, it made him feel physically ill. Where exactly did she get the idea that I liked her? We never spoke before being put on Team 7, and if I knew it would happen I would have blackmailed Gigi into putting me on a different team. Let someone else deal with this shit. And when exactly does this become teamwork? I don't see how it's possible when the only thing we do together is argue. Oh well, I can go home and study up on some seals. My long-distance eyesight is shot until I get used to sensei's jutsu, Naruto said and continued walking deeper into the woods. He was about to reach into his pocket and pull out a notebook of advanced seals, but decided not to when he heard the sounds of fighting in the distance. He walked towards the sounds and came upon a training ground with 4 people, 2 off to the side and 2 sparring. However, each person seemed blurry. One of the people on the sidelines noticed him. Hi-N Naruto, would you like to join us? Naruto smiled as he recognized the timid voice and knew who it was, even as his vision blurred a little more, like it has been doing all day. Hey, Hinata, I'd like that, if it's alright with your sensei, that is. The blonde grinned at the small blurry woman. Kurenai smiled. Of course it is, Naruto. Oh, we haven't officially met yet. I'm Kurenai Yuri, the sensei for Team 8 Inches. Naruto smiled. She's nice to me. Finally a sensei not only competent, but open-minded. Naruto Uzumaki, nice to meet you. After watching the sparring match a little longer, Kurenai told Hinata to join the fight with Shino and Kiba. That's when she noticed that Naruto was squinting. Naruto, is something wrong with your eyes? Naruto stiffened and immediately tried to hide the fact that he was squinting. No, nothing's wrong. I think I have an eyelash in my eye, that's all, Naruto said as he rubbed his eye pretending to get the fake eyelash, and he relaxed when Kurenai turned her attention back to the match. I got to admit that new collar on Akamaru sure is cute. What do you think, Naruto? Said the Jonin casually. Oh, yeah, it's neat. Shit. Naruto suddenly remembered that Kiba told him that dog nin don't wear collars because the metal could flash and betray its position to the enemy, but it was too late. Kurenai caught him. Damn, I need to think of something quick. The Jonin watched Naruto. Naruto, do you need glasses? That's good, I'll go with that. If I play the neglected demon card, Gigi will need to get involved and he can deal with it. Naruto nodded and hung his head sadly like a child who was caught red-handed. Then why haven't you gotten them? The Jonin asked. 2020 vision, he quipped mentally before considering his cover story. Naruto frowned. He wanted to say that he already had them, but then he'd have to explain where they were now, and that will lead to another can of worms. When in doubt, blame reality. I can't afford them, he said as a part of him was hoping she would act like Kakashi and drop it, but he wasn't sure about how she'd react, so he hoped the Hokage wasn't busy right now in case someone came in with a complaint, which almost never happens, what with his demon stigma. There were a couple people who cared enough to do that, and he cared for those people a great deal. Kurenai was confused. But you're a ninja, the village pays for those things. Naruto shook his head. That's not what I mean, Kurenai sensei. I mean people with my condition can't afford them. He gestured to his stomach, clearly indicating the demon inside him. So is this the moment she'll leave well alone? Kakashi would have ditched him long ago, if he'd even bothered to notice the squinting, which was doubtful. With a frighteningly sweet smile, Kurenai addressed Shino, Kiba, and Hinata. You guys were going to cut today's training short. Naruto, you are coming with me. Kurenai grabbed the blonde by the collar and dragged him away. This wasn't exactly what Naruto expected to happen, but once she thinks the Hokage is handling everything, she'll drop it. Okay, she has bigger balls than I expected, at least the old man will help. Does she know I can walk on my own, or is she going to drag me all the way to Gigi's office? Drag it, as apparently the 17-year-old blonde thought as he rolled his eyes and let the woman drag him to their destination. Kiba blinked. What was that about? He pondered out loud and his teammates shrugged. XXXXXXXXXX. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha, was sitting back smoking his pipe and relaxing after a long day of fighting the evil paperwork. Hokage-sama, said a sickly sweet voice. Sarutobi turned and saw Kurenai with dangerously sweet smile on her face and a twitching Naruto trying to break free from her grasp. The Hokage knew his peaceful break was over. We need to chat, Hokage-sama, said the Jonin as she slammed the door to his office shut. Went to Sarutobi's desk, dragging Naruto with her. Naruto just told me that he is being denied certain things like glasses because of his status as a demon vessel. Sarutobi's eyes widened. Admittedly, he was baffled at first, but then Naruto gave him a look that basically said, play along. What? Naruto, why didn't you tell me? The third was hurt that the boy he considered a grandson couldn't come to him for help, or so it sounded. Most people seem to think that I'm controlling you or something. When you're nice to me, things get harder for you, like more paperwork, council complaints, and other things. I didn't want to cause you trouble, admitted Naruto. We need to get her off my back, so spill, old man. Sarutobi frowned. He understood the message. There were many things going on in Naruto's life that the blonde wanted to hide, so in an emergency they agreed to use the truth to hide deeper truths. Naruto, I want you to tell me exactly what has been going on, the third said sternly, playing his part perfectly. Naruto sighed and told them everything. He told them about being forced to use broken or dull weapons. That he wasn't allowed to buy decent clothes or food. That no one gave him an actual medical exam at the academy, and the disturbing list continued. Such a disturbing thing to hear that it was hard to think there was more to hide, and yet there was. Sarutobi and Kurenai were at first shocked, but shock quickly gave into anger. This ends now, said Sarutobi, and he fumbled through his desk before pulling out a set of papers. Ready to show Kurenai everything will be handled. Does Kakashi know about any of this treatment? No, I don't think so, said Naruto with a frown. Nice one, make Kakashi look like an idiot. Now he'll never train me. Thank God for Sensei. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. You've been on his team for 6 months now, right? Surely he noticed something during training. What has he taught you? Tree walking, Naruto said, earning a genuine twitch of annoyance from Sarutobi. And, Kurenai urged gently, hoping there was something else on this list. That's it, Naruto shrugged, pretending to not see the problem. Wow, she's seriously pissed, he thought as he felt killer intent roll off the Jonin in waves. Do you have everything handled, Hokage-sama? She asked. Kindly, meaning there was only one proper answer. Yes, Sarutobi said quickly. Good. If you need me, I'll be looking for Kakashi, she said with a dangerously sweet tone, but just as she was about to storm out, she smiled at Naruto. If you need anything, you can come to me and my team, Kurenai said before leaving. Naruto made sure the door was shut before smirking. I like her. Kakashi might die today. If so, I can't say I'll care. He should be training you seriously, Sarutobi said as he put away the untouched papers. It's fine. I would have liked to get to know him, but, Naruto trailed off as if thinking about something. Yeah, he won't approve of a decision I made. Also, there are a few things he can't teach me since he lacks the it, like competence. Naruto insulted the copycat ninja, happily getting a chuckle out of the old man. Sarutobi smiled at the young 17-year-old ninja. Quite true, but you should have real TEM training. I'll talk to Danzo and see if we can arrange for one of his trainees to be put with you and your little friend to make a team. Maybe your sensei or one of Danzo's elite can be the team sensei, but you need to piss off Kakashi enough for him to want you off the team, otherwise I cannot legally take you off the team. Oh, and find some sort of glasses solution or Kurenai will think I didn't keep my promise and that could spell the end for me. Sarutobi pouted as Naruto seemed to find the comment funny. I'm serious, I want to live. He wailed childishly. XXXXXXXXXX. Kakashi sneezed in the middle of demonstrating a new jutsu, resulting in a pillar of water firing back at him and sending him into a tree. What a terrible time for people to gossip about me, he said as he pulled himself out of the dented tree. Whatever. Sasuke snorted and started trying the jutsu he just copied with his Sharingan. Moments after completing the hand signs, the resulting pillar started to shoot upwards only to explode as a pissed-off Kurenai blasted through it. Kakashi Hatake, you scumbag! Kurenai roared as she stomped past the Uchiha, who will never admit that she scared him, and up to Kakashi. Kakashi clapped his hands over his clothed crotch to protect his balls as he screamed, the cameras in the hot spring were Ebisu's idea, not mine. Spare me. What? Kurenai blinked in shock, but her shock drained away, revealing irritation. That's another subject we'll discuss, but right now I want to discuss Naruto's severe lack of training. Why haven't you taught him anything beyond tree walking or helped him with problems he has with the villagers? Quote. Sasuke snorted. He's weak, why bother? Sasuke's right. Naruto hasn't shown any skill in chakra control and in other things. I gave him a list of exercises and I can't train him until he completes it. As for the villagers, I'm sure he's exaggerating. You shouldn't waste your time on him. If you leave him alone, maybe he'll realize he has to figure some things out on his own, Kakashi said cheerily as Sasuke smirked. What the hell? Did he really say that? The bastard. Kurenai thought, not understanding why Kakashi would be so blasé about Naruto's life. I find it a bit hypercritical of you to say that when you're clearly bottle-feeding everything to Sasuke. The Uchiha sneered in disgust at the comment. How about this? I'll take over Naruto's training. If in the 3 months leading up to the Chunin exam he has shown a Chunin level jump in skills, you are my slave for the next 2 years, but if he shows little or no progress by the exams, I'll get you a bathhouse pictures of any 10 ladies you want. Also, if I find Naruto was making things sound worse than they really were with the villagers, then I'll videotape a threesome of ladies for you. Kakashi's eyes bulged at the offer, which was a dream come true, deal. He shook her hand, but winced as she squeezed really hard. Ow, ow, ow. Now what was this about cameras? Kurenai asked in a deadly sweet tone. The silver-haired Jonin broke out in a fearful cold sweat. Mommy. XXXXXXXXXX. Naruto walked deep into the forest where a small cottage sat next to a flowing river, so its large wooden watermill attached to the side dipped into the stream, keeping it turning. Hey, I'm home, oof. Naruto was tackled to the ground. When he looked up to see who was straddling his hips, he saw an adorable fair-skinned red-haired male with red eyes, fluffy fox ears, a fluffy fox tail, and completely save for a frilly pink apron. Hello, Kurama. Nice outfit, he said while biting back a groan as Kurama shifted, effectively cause friction in a sensitive area. I don't like yours. Kurama pouted cutely and tugged at the orange fabric. I can't change if you're on top of me. Naruto chuckled as the foxy male pondered whether or not he really wanted to give up his spot, but before Kurama could make up his mind, Naruto spotted a blue-haired woman in a long-sleeved green dress and fluffy white collar coming out of the forest. Hey, Gurren-sensei. Hey to you, Naruto. Having fun? Gurren asked with a lot of amusement in her dark eyes as her student seemed quite comfortable with the sexy redhead straddling him. Okay, fun time is over. Get off him, Kurama. You can cuddle him later, but I want to check his eyes, she said, and Kurama's fluffy ears dropped as he reluctantly moved off the blonde. Now Naruto, you made great progress in the crystal release, but how are you adjusting to the crystal spy glass jutsu? Eyes still blurry? Gurren asked as they all went into the cottage and sat down in the cozy sunny living that had more windows than walls and several skylights in the high ceilings. Not great. It's taking a while to adjust and there were some issues because of it, Naruto said as Kurama cuddled next to him. I'll explain later, but don't worry. I doubt Kurenai will get involved again. Kurenai smiled as she walked up to her 3 students. Okay, today we're doing something different today. We're going to get Naruto, and from now until the Chunin exams he will train with us. Of course, sensei, but wouldn't that affect the team arrangement for Team 7, sensei? Hinata asked quietly, showing much less stutter in her voice without Naruto there. Normally it would, but Team 7's sensei has decided on training individually, so since Naruto is having chakra trouble, he coming with us. Now we're going to start by getting to know him, so where does he live? Kurenai asked, hoping to get a head start on the truth behind the blonde. Shino raised an eyebrow. Sensei, why do we need to know that for him to improve in chakra? The Genjutsu mistress pouted when she realized she slipped up in her desperation to win the bet. I made a point to learn about you guys when we became a team, she said pointedly, hoping that would cover up her slip while avoiding the truth about the bet she made with Kakashi. If certain people found out about that, there would be a bloodbath and she'd be caught in the middle. Yeah, but you never asked where we lived, Kiba said as his dog barked something for him to translate, and Akamaru wants to know why the individual training is taking 3 months when the exams are coming. For a moment Kurenai considered trying to avoid the truth again, but sighed, forget it. This will go smoother if you all knew, but don't let anyone know, especially Naruto. I don't want him to think I only took up his training because of this reason, understand? Kurenai asked and sighed in relief when her genins nodded seriously, supposedly understanding the gravity of the situation. Of course, if they didn't now, they soon will. Okay, where do I begin? You know how I dragged Naruto away yesterday. They nodded, curious as to where this is going. Well, it turns out he needed glasses. What, and the idiot didn't know how to get them on his own? Kiba chuckled, but his laughter died when he saw the very serious look on his sensei's face and he promptly shut up. Perhaps I should warn you all first. There is a reason Naruto can't do some things or isn't allowed some commonplace needs, but I can't legally tell you. I have a feeling you will all learn what that is the more you spend time with his, so you must keep this in mind, the old saying, a scroll is not a kunai, understand? Don't judge him, Kurenai stated seriously. Shino nodded as his teammates took more time to digest what they were told in silence. We won't, sensei. If you say so, that's good enough for me, he said, and succeeded in settling his teammate thoughts on the matter. Thank you guys, but you might not like what I did. You see, upon speaking to the Hokage about Naruto, I asked him what training he was giving. Kakashi only trained him in tree walking, so I decided to have a chat with him. We ended up making a bet. If I can prove Naruto was telling the truth about not being allowed certain things and can become a skilled ninja, then Kakashi, let's just say he owes me a few favors. And if you can't? Shino asked. Kurenai smiled nervously. He gets to pick 10 women for me to get pictures of and videotape an encounter between 3 women. She winced as her 3 students paled. You see the potential danger here. No shit, sensei. What if Naruto, the fucking dead last, doesn't show a lot of improvement and the pervert sensei picks my mother or sister and they hear about this bet and my involvement? What if he picks any women from our clans and this gets out? They'll skin us all alive. Kiba screamed and paled further before glancing at a blushing Hinata. And what if he picks Hinata? He asked, his voice filled with dread, and Shino and Kurenai understood why. Of course he'd worry for his crush even though Hinata never noticed his feelings. You're right, this could go really badly, but I don't think it will go that way. The best way to make sure it doesn't go badly is to start learning everything we can. Now you guys went to school with him for years, so what do you know? Kurenai asked eagerly, but she quickly deflated as she noticed they were looking at each as if expecting the others to talk. Anything would be great, she said, sounding a touch desperate. Shino pointed at Kiba. He was friends with him. Not really. I tried spending time hanging out with him because, Kiba smiled sheepishly, he was always blamed for my pranks. I felt kind of bad about that, so I bought him a lunch a couple times, but we really weren't friends. Now Shino calmed down. Kiba yelped and backed away quickly as the insect user's swarm exited his body and hovered towards the dog ninja with a threatening buzz. You were the one who tainted my sugar water with bug killer. I infested his desk with spiders for that. You killed half of my hive. Shino snapped. Back then I didn't know that the Aburame gave their hive treats when their kids in beginning training with them. I didn't mean it, so water under the bridge, right, Shino? Kiba gulped and backed away as the insects inched closer. He suddenly turned to run, but he was caught in the swarm and his chakra was drained just enough to leave him out cold on the ground. Kiba, Hinata gasped, but Akamaru padded over to her to assure her that Kiba was fine save for being an idiot. Kurenai shrugged, used to the Genin's antics. Leave him. He wasn't helping anyway. What about you two? Other than the fact that he has a crush on Sakura, I don't know anything. I kind of gave him the cold shoulder for what I thought was his cruel prank, Shino said and shot his down teammate a glare. Okay, what about you, Hinata? You're crushing on him for a reason, right? The Jonin asked, getting close to pulling her hair out. He doesn't tolerate bullies. I saw him defend Sakura and he defended me too. A few times I saw him with a takeout ramen for lunch, so I think it's his favorite, but I never found him outside of school, Hinata admitted with a light blush. Kurenai pouted. That was a little more helpful, but it seems we start from scratch here. Let's go get him. She paused when she heard Kiba groaned as he twitched randomly. We don't have time for him to completely recover, so grab him, Akamaru. The large dog obediently took his owner's collar in his mouth and flipped Kiba onto his back before following after the other members of Team 8. XXXXXXXXX. Wow. I smell something really good. Naruto grinned as he walked into his kitchen where Kurama was in his little pink apron and not much else. Pork cutlets, my favorite, he said as he stole one of the crispy pork-filled treats from the large lunchbox Kurama was setting up and ate it as Kurama started cuddling. Why do you only cook for me when you're in heat? Kurama purred, completely missing the question since he seemed very dazed and flushed. Mine, he mewed and stood on his tiptoes to kiss the blonde's neck, but he tugged at the orange jacket with a disapproving pout. I hate these clothes. I know. Naruto chuckled and finished his cutlet. The red eyes watched the blonde lick the grease and crumbs from his fingers and shivered in delight as he felt aroused. Take them off. Naruto smirked as his hand moved down to the bare butt under the fluffy tail and squeezed, taking note of the shameless moan and the trickle of cum dripping from the pucker. It's never enough, is it, Kurama? Sadly, I have to meet my team, but if it is the usual, I should be back soon to satisfy you, he said and tugged Kurama's fluffy ear, earning a moan. Until then, he whispered huskily, and a clone appeared wearing only black pants and it pulled Kurama into a hot kiss. As the redhead's moans slowly got louder, Naruto took the lunch box and left before he couldn't stop himself from joining in. Once he was out of hearing distance, he sealed the lunch box away into a seal on his wrist while unsealing a pair of black glasses frames he managed to fashion using chakra-enforced wire. There were no lenses, but that was the point. You see, he was supposed to make those last night too, but Kurama ended up distracting him for the rest of the night. With one hand sign, he made a flat, slightly pink-tinted crystal lens appear on his fingertip and with a little chakra made it expand to fit the curved opening. Once he was sure it fit properly, he made the second lens and cleaned them before putting them on. It didn't change his sight or fix the occasional dizziness, but it will spare the old man his life. Besides, after a good sleep his eyes were better, and having his crystals over his eyes would make the spyglass jutsu rather easy, once he adjusts it, of course. Naruto put his complete glasses on and after tweaking them to fit better he jumped into the trees. Gigi better thank me for making these things. In this jumpsuit I look like even more of an idiot wearing them, even though they'd look great with any other clothes, though I guess that works in my favor as far as the villagers go. He sighed and raced to the spot where he meets up with his team. Much to his disappointment, he arrived just as Sakura was waiting for Sasuke, which usually means she'll have time to insult him instead of trying to seduce Sasuke. I won't go out without you. Sakura blinked as she spotted the new addition to Naruto's face. What the hell? Nothing you wear will make you smart, moron. Take those things off. She ordered and held out her hand expecting him to hand them over. Honestly, she just thought the classy slim frames would look better on her and wanted them. Naruto happens to need those, so no, he won't. Naruto turned to see Team 8 and prayed that Kurenai was only with the rest of Team 8 to check that he got his glasses, but something told him there was another reason. Although, despite his instincts screaming this is bad, he was wondering why Kiba was draped over Akamaru seemingly asleep. Very curious. What? No, he doesn't. He most likely lied to you for a prank. We know how much he loves those. Sakura chuckled sweetly, trying to play nice, but eyes hard to trick people when they just saw you chewing out someone you clearly don't know as well as you should despite being on the same team for a while. Kurenai frowned as she realized the issues with Team the 7th of may be bigger than she thought if Naruto has to hear this kind of crap all day, and she started liking the thought of getting Naruto out of here. Where's Kakashi? He won't be around for another 3 hours or so, Sakura said with a huff. Well, I wanted him here when I did this, but oh well. Naruto, Kakashi agreed to let me take over your training for the next few months, so could you come with us? Kurenai asked, though it sounded more like an order. Naruto gaped. What? No. I need to piss off my lazy sensei and get sent to a new team, and Kurama needs me. He thought in horror. Kurama can get wild and is known to dispel clones when he's in heat, so once that happens he'll be a walking hard-on because of the memories he'll no doubt receive. That and Kurama should not be left alone for more than a few hours when he's in heat. Sakura shrugged. He's your problem then. Don't say you weren't warned when this bonehead screws everything up. We'll see. Come on, Naruto. Kurenai snapped, rather irritated with the bitch, and she grabbed the blonde by the collar and dragged him with again. What is it with all this dragging? Naruto sighed mentally. I won't be very useful on a mission if I'm being dragged, Kurenai-sensei. He pointed out the second Sakura was out of sight. Oh, sorry, Kurenai said sheepishly as she let him go. Actually, we weren't going to go on a mission with Kiba like this. Instead, I thought it'd be a good idea to take some time to get to know you, so how about we go to your house and have a chat? Sensei did the same for us, Shino said, kind of lying about his sensei's methods. After thinking frantically, he decided to take a chance. I actually have an apartment. I really hope Konohamaru is in a very good mood today, he mentally prayed to every god up there. Kurenai smiled. Then take us there, she said kindly despite being very eager to get down to business. Sure, Naruto said, inwardly panicking as he mentally contacted his clone who was busy. To buy his clone some time and avoid any villagers, he decided to go the long way around the village. Strangely enough, Kurenai didn't like that option. Wouldn't it be faster if we cut through the village? The Jonin asked. I prefer going this way, Naruto said, wondering why she would question that after everything he told her in front of Gigi. Did she want him to get within range of the villagers? Granted, they wouldn't try anything if he was with Team 8, but there was no point in provoking them either. It could make things worse for the next time he was alone. XXXXXXXXXX. Ah, so good. Kurama screamed as he was bent over the counter and had a vibrator thrust deep into him, hitting the prostate with each thrust. The clone smirked as the cute red head moaned and squirmed under his teasing. You're such a today. This must be the peak of your heat, he said before grabbing the fluffy tail and giving it a few firm strokes. Kurama's eyes rolled back. Oh God. He screamed in pure ecstasy and came hard, pouring cum all over the counter. More, my hole needs more. Oh yes. Kurama moaned wildly as the vibrating toy was cranked up to a higher setting and thrust even deeper as the base of his tail was stroked, sending the most amazing bolts of pleasure up his spine. Damn, you're a fox, Naruto's clone said huskily as he watched the toy appear and disappear into the tight channel. He suddenly twisted it, earning a yelp and a gush of pre-cum to come out of the dripping. So fucking delicious, the clone ate as he leaned over to nip at the perky backside. Aha, yes, more. Kurama cried out in pleasure and bucked his hips up to get more of that mouth and toy, effectively brushing his against the counter, making more pleasurable sparks through his body. Shit. Bad time, boss, The clone hissed under his breath as he watched the cum trickle off the counter as the red-haired demon came again. The boss needs me to do something, Kurama. I'll be back to play in a few minutes, he said before kissing the flushed horny demon's butt and shoving the toy in and sealing it so it stays deep inside. Kurama screamed and his knees buckled in pleasure. The clone scooped him up and left the redhead bucking and writhing in pleasure on the couch as he went to grab a few of the boss's things and took off running. It was a risk, but he went straight through the village. At least at the speed he was going, the villagers didn't see him, and thankfully next to no ninjas were there to notice him since they were probably preparing for the Chunin exam. Whether they were participating or setting up the event itself, everyone was busy. Before long the clone came up to a building. It was an abandoned apartment complex on the very edge of town and marked the boundary between the village and the part of the village that was abandoned after the Nine-Tails attack. Technically it was where he lived before Gigi found out and got involved, but now his friend Konohamaru lives there. Why would the Hokage's grandson live there of all places? Simple. Konohamaru is stubborn and loathes the villagers for how they treated Naruto. When Naruto moved into his current home, Konohamaru moved into the abandoned complex with only this to say to anyone who complained: if it's good enough for Naruto, then it's good enough for me. Granted, the complex didn't look abandoned or even slightly neglected with Naruto's help in cleaning it up for Konohamaru, but the villagers still sulk over the choice the Hokage's grandson made. Finally the clone jumped up to the third-floor balcony and knocked frantically on the glass door. Konohamaru, the boss needs your help. The clone exclaimed and tried to look away as the younger ninja came out of the bathroom in only a towel. What's wrong? Did something happen to Naruto? A very worried Raven asked, but blinked as he saw a few of those hideous orange jumpsuits and a team photo in the clone's arms. Why do you have those clothes? Konohamaru asked curiously. The boss is in a bind. He needs to satisfy Team 8's curiosity on certain things, but he can't take them to his own place with Kurama in heat, the clone explained, and Konohamaru blushed at the news. This apartment is the only one that's set up and looks lived in, so can I set it up with a few of the boss's things? The clone pleaded. Yes, of course, Konohamaru said and stuttered slightly as the shirtless blonde moved past him and into the apartment. I haven't cleaned up, Konohamaru said, a little embarrassed at the ramen bowls randomly placed around the apartment, even in his bedroom. That's fine, the clone chuckled amusedly as he hung the jumpsuits in the closet and politely sealed Konohamaru's clothes into a seal he placed on the wall inside the closet. If you don't mind, could you place this somewhere while I move some of your photos? They'll all be in the seal I put in the closet, the clone asked as he handed the team photo to Konohamaru. That I can do, Konohamaru said, pleased to help. What teammates are on Team 8? He asked as he went in the kitchen and placed the photo off to the side, partially covered by a vase. Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, the clone shivered slightly at the name. Shino hated the boss for some reason, but he never knew why. It just came out of nowhere with spiders in the boss's desk. He wondered how being on the same team with the bug ninja will go. And Kiba Inuzuka, he said as he collected all of the photos hanging on the walls, including a cute one of Konohamaru and Naruto waving in front of this very building. The clone noticed something Naruto didn't before. Konohamaru was blushing at the closeness with the blonde. Unfortunately, there was no time to ponder it, so the clone ignored it for now. Inuzuka, he'll catch my scent, right? Konohamaru exclaimed as he grabbed a towel on the counter. The clone would have face-palmed right there if he wasn't holding all those photos. Shit, I didn't even think of that, Konohamaru. What are you doing? Konohamaru just lit the towel on fire and let it burn as he ran a couple laps around the apartment, covering our scents. You burned a towel during breakfast and went for ramen instead, he said before soaking the burnt towel in the sink and tossed it in the trash with a ramen bowl on top. You're brilliant. I'll tell the boss and seal these away, the clone said, making the young ninja blush, and put the photos safely away in the closet seal. But when he turned to leave through the bedroom side of the balcony, he ducked down as he spotted the boss and Team 8 walking towards the building. They're coming, he said as he stayed out of eyesight and dragged Konohamaru out of eyesight from the kitchen side of the balcony door. Are they gone? Konohamaru squeaked as he was pulled up against a strong chest and blushed violently. Yes, they're in the building. In a second we can leave through the balcony. The blonde stiffened as he spotted a horny and Kurama perched on the balcony. Kurama, let's go home. The young raven gasped as the clone opened the balcony only to be tackled by the horny demon, and was dispelled almost instantly. Kurama mewled at the loss of his toy, and much to Konohamaru's horror the demon's lust-filled eyes zeroed on him. XXXXXXXXXX. So is it nice being on the same team as your crush? Kurenai asked, using the only piece of information she had on the boy to start the conversation. My crush. Naruto blinked, absolutely baffled at what the jonin meant. Sasuke is, so not my type. Kakashi has a nice, but I prefer some common sense. No, she isn't talking about her, is she? Who's my crush? Kurenai flinched as she noticed there wasn't any sign of deception and realized she may have already started with incorrect information. Sakura, she answered, and knew she was wrong the second it came out of her mouth. Perhaps it was because Naruto looked visibly sick at the thought. I'm gay. Always was. Never liked any girl that way. Why does everyone seem to think that I like Sakura? Naruto asked, legitimately confused. Of all the secrets I hide on a daily basis, my isn't one of them. Hinata blushed. Why, you're gay? She exclaimed, a little disappointed. Shino seemed stunned, however, and Kurenai just looked really happy that she learned something, which baffled Naruto even more. Akamaru didn't too surprised, but he may have been too distracted with keeping Kiba on his back to react. Nothing against you, Hinata. If I were straight I'd definitely fall for you, but I never was, nor did I hide it. Who started that rumor anyway? Naruto asked, trying to bide time for his clone, but also wanted to cheer Hinata up. He always knew about her crush on him, but his subtle hints went unnoticed. I heard it from Ino, I think. Hinata stuttered slightly, trying to control herself. It hurt a little, but Naruto was only being honest and she couldn't blame him for that. Why would she think that? Naruto pondered out loud as he spotted the roof of the apartment complex only a little ways away. No clue. So what kind of guys do you like? Do you have a boyfriend? If you do, we should get him and go to the center of the village to chat, Kurenai said more casually than she felt. If she could get them into the village and watch the reactions, then she can see how bad the villagers are. Naruto mentally winced. Kurama won't like this, but I can't tell them, let alone have them meet, least of all now. Naruto sighed. No boyfriend. I guess I like the calm, silent types, the blonde said, and it was true. Kurama is normally like that unless he was in heat, but Naruto twitched and took a step away from Shino when he realized his description matched the bug ninja, and those who don't hate me for unknown reasons. About that, Shino said softly with a light blush appearing just above his high collar, I was mistaken. I thought you were responsible for a nasty prank that damaged my hive, but you weren't, and I apologize, Shino said sincerely. The blonde looked very relieved. Okay, I understand. It's not like you're the only one who thinks I'm a prankster. You'd think Chunin instructors would be smart enough to peg the right troublemaker, but I guess not, he commented like the naive fool he was pretending to be. Obviously he knew he was accused simply for the chance to punish the demon, and that's all. They all knew the truth, but preferred hurting him instead of doing their jobs. What he wasn't sure about was why Kurenai was taking in every piece of information like her life depended on it. Did it? What's with Team 8 all of a sudden? Yes, you'd think so, Kurenai said calmly as she pondered the point. Any Chunin should be able to handle academy students without mix-ups like that. Naruto should never have been blamed for things he never did. There was only one reason she could think of for the blaming, was simply because of Naruto's burden, which made it more likely that Naruto wasn't lying at all about how he was treated. This was made even more clear when she saw the building they were approaching. You live here? She asked, a little disturbed that Naruto was so far out on the edge of the village and right near the abandoned part of the village that was deemed unstable after the Nine-Tails attack. Naruto nodded. I have for years, he said smoothly. It wasn't quite a lie after all. He didn't say that he still lived there. Just as he guided them into the building, he felt his clone dispel, "I forgot to clean up. Just head to the third floor." He yelled and took off so fast that he was a blur and no one had time to protest. The second he raced into the apartment, he made a clone, and as the clone began gathering ramen cups as an excuse, he tried to drag Kurama off Konohamaru. Kurama let him go. He hissed as he pulled the redhead's mouth off of Konohamaru's, which was now quite hard and weeping. "But he's tasty, can he play with us too?" The horny demon moaned as he nuzzled the tent that was pitched in the blonde's orange pants, which was no doubt caused by the clone's first memories. "Now's not the..." Naruto's eyes nearly popped out of his head when he spotted a flushed and panting Konohamaru laying on the floor with his legs spread wide, revealing everything. "Konohamaru, why aren't you dressed?" Konohamaru blushed brightly as he covered his privates with his hands. "You sealed my clothes," he hissed, incredibly embarrassed that he wasn't in front of his crush no less. Naruto face-palmed at his idiocy. "Shit, Naruto froze mid-apology when he heard the door open. He grabbed both Konohamaru and Kurama and leapt out onto the balcony. "Naruto, your hand," Konohamaru squeaked as he felt the blonde's hand on his bare butt, which begged to question where his towel went. "Sorry." Naruto gasped and set Konohamaru down, but twitched as he felt Kurama sucking his fingers. "Not now," he hissed and held them back as Team 8 spread put in the apartment. If they moved, they'd be spotted for sure. As they waited for the clone in the apartment to provide a distraction so they can get away, they became aware of a faint buzzing noise. "Kurama, do you still have the vibrator in you?" Naruto asked, making Konohamaru blush at the thought and bury his face in the blonde's chest. The clone smiled awkwardly as he saw Team 8 enter the apartment without even knocking. "I'm sorry, everything is." The clone blinked as they brushed past him and began looking around. Akamaru, and by extension the unconscious Kiba, was the only one who seemed to wait to be allowed in. "Such a mess." He finished his sentence feeling rather snubbed as he gestured for Akamaru to come in, but he froze in horror as he spotted what was Konohamaru's towel on the kitchen floor. "That's fine. How much ramen do you eat? And what's that smell? Did you burn something?" Kurenai asked as she went into Naruto's bedroom, or what she thought was the blonde's room. "I accidentally burned breakfast along with a towel," the clone said as he casually stepped on Konohamaru's towel and slid it along the floor until it was right next to the lower cabinet. Once he saw Akamaru go look over the living room with Shino as Hinata went into the bathroom to look around, the clone bent down and tossed the towel into the cabinet. "Oh, Shino isn't very good at cooking either. Would you like some pointers? You shouldn't eat only ramen, you know," Kurenai said pointedly. "Deja vu," the boss said the same thing after learning that's 50% of Konohamaru's diet. The clone mused as he recalled the boss's discovery, which was actually when he was helping Konohamaru move in this very building. Naruto always thought Konohamaru just brought extra ramen so the blonde got a lunch during the academy, but the ramen was really an addiction on the Raven's part. "Thanks, Kurenai-sensei," the clone said politely. "But the boss can cook just fine. Right now he needs to get off of the balcony." The clone thought, panicking slightly as he heard Kurenai walk around in the bedroom. If she decided to look outside onto the bedroom side of the balcony, the boss was screwed. It wasn't easy since the apartment, while fairly big, was only 3 rooms. The living room, dining room and the kitchen were all one open room, so with the bathroom and bedroom that is only 3 rooms. All of which had views to the balcony. Even the bathroom, which was right across the hall from the bedroom, and when the door is open you can see straight to the balcony. "We really should get you some different clothes too. You only have one style," Kurenai commented with a slightly teasing tone from the bedroom. "Shopping isn't the best thing for me," the clone said with a sharp twitch in his eye. Kurenai clearly knew what goes on in the village, so why did it seem like she wanted to risk taking him through the village? Did she want him hurt? Shino turned towards the blonde curiously. "Why is that exactly?" he asked, and a curious Hinata came out of the bathroom to hear the answer. The clone heard a click that sounded like the balcony door in the bedroom being unlocked and decided enough was enough. "Hold it." The clone snapped, making Hinata and Shino flinch as a sheepish-looking Kurenai came back into the living room, thankfully leaving the bedroom and hopefully giving the real Naruto a chance to escape. I could be wrong, but this feels like an investigation. Not at all. We're just trying to get to know you. Kurenai exclaimed, getting nods from Shino, Hinata and Akamaru. You didn't strike me as the type of girl who goes straight to a guy's bedroom to learn about him. The clone said sarcastically, taking a bit of enjoyment in the embarrassed blush that came to Kurenai's cheeks. Kurenai chuckled sheepishly. I'm sorry. I got a little carried away. We really want to learn more about you. Why, sure, I'll be on your team, but this seems a bit over the top. Naruto's clone said, but noticed a subtle shift in all their postures. They were hiding something, but what? Shino adjusted his glasses calmly. Keep in mind we won't have too much time to get to know you before we'll be going on missions, so we need to rush things. It may seem rude, but we're doing this to better our teamwork. If this bothers you, then we can start with the issues you need help with. Your clothing, for example, needs to change or you will have stealth issues. Shino quickly lied, hoping Naruto would buy it. Naruto's clone looked down at Shino with a fake convinced smile. Well, when you put it that way, then I guess it does make sense. The clone said, but was definitely thinking along different lines. Bullshit. What are they hiding? The clone wondered before relenting to being dragged through the village on a shopping trip, but there was a problem. The clone didn't have Naruto's wallet. With a quick mental signal, he told the original the problem. As he walked with Team 8 down the stairs to leave the apartment, he looked for any sign of the wallet. When they got to a former sitting area in the second floor to head down to the staircase that leads to the last staircase, he spotted the wallet sealed to the bottom of an old broken exit sign. He fell back slowly, so he was walking behind Team 8 and snagged the wallet with a chakra thread. It fell right into the clone's hand without Team 8 noticing. XXXXXXXXXXX. Kurama, stay quiet. Naruto hissed under his breath as Kurama moaned. Kurama rocked his hips, grinding himself against Naruto's leg. Ha I'm coming. Konohamaru felt his own release coming as he watched Naruto silence the redhead with a steamy kiss to swallow the moans. The sight of those tan hands grabbing Kurama's butt and squeezing, getting the much-needed release covering Naruto's jacket in cum was so hot that Konohamaru needed to bite his lip to keep from coming right there. Of course, the blissed-out face on the fox demon wasn't helping the young raven's situation. I'm taking your toy, Naruto hissed. Konohamaru's eyes widened as those thick tan fingers slipped into the redhead's needy hole and removed the rather large vibrator. As Naruto turned off the toy, they heard a click from the bedroom balcony door and they froze, save for Kurama, who was unzipping Naruto's pants to pull out the large for a taste. Hold it. The captives breathed a sigh of relief as the clone's yell made whoever was in the bedroom to abandon their attempt to get out onto the balcony. Naruto heard the person leave the bedroom and sighed, now we fuck. Not now. He hissed and shoved Kurama's teasing mouth off his before grabbing both males and jumping off the bedroom side of the balcony. I want my treat. Kurama whined and knocked Naruto onto the ground once they landed. Konohamaru's heart bounced when he rolled out of Naruto's arm, and when he looked up to protest, he was met with the sight of Kurama licking Naruto's large. Fuck. Kurama, I can fuck you in a few minutes. Naruto groaned as the redhead's mouth swallowed as much of his as it could and sucked, but after only a minute Naruto pulled Kurama off his with a rough yank of the red locks that only made the horny demon mule. Shit. 1 second. Naruto exclaimed as he suddenly ran into the lower part of the apartment building while trying to hold his pants up. Wait. Don't just. Konohamaru winced. It was too late. Naruto was out of earshot. The blonde left him but with a horny demon. Before Konohamaru could even turn to face Kurama, he was flipped, so he was on all fours and heard buzzing. Kurama licked the raven's tight little pucker. You're a virgin. I can taste it. Kurama purred before taking the vibrator and running along the length of Konohamaru's. Ha! Konohamaru gasped at the amazing feeling, but clapped his hands over his mouth to keep his moans quiet. So yummy. Kurama purred as he watched the perky butt wiggle with each stroke the toy took over the sensitive hard flesh. He couldn't resist pushing his tongue the tight twitching pucker and move it. Fuck him, Konohamaru yelped in shock before securing his hands over his mouth again. As his mind started melting with each move of the tongue and the vibration of the vibrator now soaked with his pre-cum, he started picturing Naruto's hands on him. He imagined that it was Naruto's tongue deep in his and that it was Naruto's brushing against his own. The thoughts made him hornier. He was about to cum when Kurama was dragged off him. Naruto sighed in frustration. I'm separating you two, he said as he made two clones appear to carry Kurama so he could carry Konohamaru. The three blondes and their cargo raced quickly out of sight and just missed being spotted by Team 8. With that worry out of the way, they headed for Naruto's real home where they wanted to wait until Team 8 was done with their shopping trip. I'm sorry, Konohamaru. I'll have my clone clean your place up and put everything back once Team 8mm. Naruto's eyes widened as Konohamaru kissed him full on the mouth. He was so stunned that he couldn't stop the raven from adjusting, so the pale legs were wrapped around his waist where Konohamaru began grinding his crotch against Naruto's clothed. Want you? Konohamaru said breathlessly before kissing the blonde again. The blonde was having a hard time holding back. Naruto knew Konohamaru wasn't thinking straight, but the raven was a surprisingly good kisser and that did not help. By the time they got to the cottage, Naruto was so wound up it was a miracle he didn't fuck Konohamaru right there like his clones did Kurama. Want your? He mewed after being dropped on the couch only to throw his head back and moan hotly as a Naruto moved between his legs, thrust hard, rubbing there together. Tell me that when you're in your right mind and then I'll you. Naruto groaned, and with one thrust at just the right angle he watched Konohamaru cum, spraying thick white ribbons of cum onto their chests before the raven passed out. Naruto. Oh, me. Kurama screamed as he rode the of the clone laying on the floor as the second clone used the vibrator to tease the red head nipples while playing with the sensitive fluffy ears. XXXXXXXXXXX. Kiba slowly came to and realized he was on Akamaru's back, but facing the butt end of his canine friend and a little sore as if he fell off a few times, which he did during the shopping. Before he could complain though, he noticed something odd. As the rest of his team went to check out, the demeanor of the usually friendly store clerk changed. The clerk was now sending Naruto a harsh glare. However, once the rest of his team returned, the glare that made the blonde so tense vanished. Akamaru. He whispered, knowing his friend could hear him. I need to see something. Go out ahead of everyone and slowly drop back behind everyone. He explained, getting a growl of understanding in return, and continued pretending to be out cold. It was a huge difference. At first, when they were walking ahead, all the villagers seemed so cheery and friendly, but as Akamaru dropped back, he saw flat out hate, and every bit of it was directed at the blonde, which explained why Naruto was so tense. The villagers looked ready to kill him, and they were smart enough to not show their feelings even in front of Akamaru. Something about that deeply unnerved the dog ninja. Kurenai sighed as she let Naruto go home. I didn't see anything off, she said, a bit concerned about the bet. You're wrong, sensei, Kiba said as he easily got off of Akamaru, implying he has been awake for a while. Kurenai frowned. What do you mean? Danzo poured out 4 cups of tea and set them out on the table in front of Naruto, Gurren and Hiruzen. So, Naruto, tell us what's going on. It had better be serious or I'll be pissed that you called us at 4 in the morning. Gurren grumbled crankily as she snatched a tea from the platter being held in the old ninja's hand. Why am I on a 4-person team with Team 8 and not on Team 7 trying to annoy the hell out of Kakashi? Naruto asked bluntly, too tired to bother with tact. Gurren seemed to suddenly become alert and glared at the stunned old ninjas. We're supposed to be hiding Naruto's wandering demon issue from getting out, and you twats authorized him to be moved to a team where 2 people can either see or analyze chakra and the third can smell foxes. Are you mad? Sarutobi whimpered in fear as he cowered behind the only slightly less scared Danzo. I didn't authorize any team changes. Don't crystallize my nuts again. What? Naruto blinked in disbelief. Kurenai told me Kakashi agreed to this team change, so are you saying they both went behind your back? Honest. I knew nothing. Sarutobi yelped in fear as Gurren placed her hands together in a hand sign. All I know is that Kurenai came hours ago asking for a team mission, which, I guess, did seem weird. She never came to pick up a mission without her team before. She didn't want you to see Naruto. Danzo concluded with a frown, but why? They want to investigate me. Naruto said bluntly and saw everyone looking at him in concern. I don't know what happened, but after Kurenai's sudden protective rampage, she went after Kakashi when she left your office. Something happened between them, and now Team 8 is trying to learn as much as possible, even where I live. Gurren winced, as Kurama still hidden. Last I saw him he was in heat. Naruto nodded as he rubbed his eyes tiredly. I was able to make them think my home was Konohamaru's apartment, but that wasn't easy. You see, Kurama was at the end of his heat. You'd think two perverted old men would be less concerned about this and just ask for details on how Naruto was handling the fox, but both Danzo and Sarutobi looked concerned. What happened? Sarutobi asked seriously, knowing full well that the end of the heat was the most dangerous for a few reasons. One reason, of course, being that a powerful demon capable of destroying a village was running around in a horny state that will even drive a civilian so mad that something is going to be destroyed if they are not satisfied, or even during the satisfaction. Many clones were destroyed during the time of heat. He escaped the cottage and went after my clone who was preparing Konohamaru's apartment for Team 8. He got a hold of Konohamaru, but I checked. Naruto said quickly, reassuring the Hokage that his grandson was safe. Kurama only physically touched Konohamaru for a brief minute. He was affected by the hormones, but not poisoned. He's resting at my place for now. Sarutobi sighed in relief. Don't misunderstand me, Naruto, but sometimes I wish you didn't release Kurama without talking to me first. I get it, but I was a kid and Kurama was in a lot of pain because of the seal. I didn't think to ask if there was any issues I should know about, like a yearly heat season that can drive an all-powerful demon insane if not tended to every single time, or if the pheromones of a demon could have adverse effects for a human who didn't grow up exposed to demon chakra. Must have slipped my mind. Naruto muttered with a hint of sarcasm. To be fair, you two had no issue assigning guards to help Kurama until I became a ninja. Naruto commented, knowing only a few trusted root agents were used, but that both Sarutobi and Danzo picked from the root agents. Admittedly, Naruto knew it had to be done back then, but nowadays he hated thinking about Kurama having with random people. Of course, it was only during those few days or weeks of heat, not any other time, but still it felt odd. He always had to remember that he grew with Kurama and they had a solid relationship. The fact that he had Kurama to himself now meant everything. Danzo and Sarutobi both deadpanned. Neither of us knew about the poisoning part. They muttered with dazed eyes as if they were remembering the frightening symptoms of long-term exposure to pheromones. Some agents may never be able to fully recover. Kurama is done with his heat, at least. He seemed sane and his tail and fluffy ears were hidden before I came here, but back to Team 8. They are clearly after something and it has to involve Kakashi, too. I mean, Kurenai knows about the demon being sealed inside me and I told her I'm not treated well because of it, but what does she do? She drags me to nearly every store in the village. It makes no sense unless she's one of them. The blonde muttered doubtfully. Gurren scoffed. If she'd bother dragging you to the Hokage, then she's not a narrow-minded fool. I agree. She was genuine. The mission I gave her starts tomorrow. I don't believe Kakashi is planning on missions. Danzo, could you have a few of your agents follow him? Sarutobi asked between sips of his tea. Yes, Naruto, you should make sure Kurama is through with his heat before leaving. Danzo said pointedly. The blonde nodded tiredly, not having a single wink of sleep between dealing with Team 8 and Kurama's heat. Yeah, I'll go check. Gurren made a hand sign, instantly making the two old men flinch, but they relaxed as a crystal earpiece appeared in her hand. Here, you haven't mastered the spy glass jutsu, but you do have enough skill to use the sound part of the jutsu. Report to me if you learn anything. I will, Naruto said before putting the earpiece around the back of his ear and getting up to leave the cozy apartment complex deep in the Root hideout where Danzo lived with Gurren, who was a Root agent herself, and all other agents. Normally, he would have tried to go straight to Sarutobi, but by the time he tired Kurama out he figured it was too late to just run into the office. No doubt, the Hokage would have retired for the night, so he went to Danzo and Gurren, who had a means of calling Sarutobi in emergencies, or when Danzo invites Sarutobi over for some crystal ball viewing. Since the crystal ball's default setting was the ladies' side of the bathhouse, you can imagine how pissed Gurren was when she happened to walk in on them when she came to report on a new recruit. Naruto left the hideout and went home in the rain, but he noticed Kurama standing but right outside the cottage. Kurama. He called out over the thunder as he went over to the redhead, who must have been out of heat because the fox-like tail and ears were hidden with human features, but normally Kurama would be out cold for a week after going through heat, so why was he awake? The red eyes looked exhausted, but so sad too. I caused a lot of trouble, didn't I? Not that much, Naruto said as he pulled Kurama against his chest. The cool rain just rolled down their bodies and dripped to the ground, taking the cum pouring out of Kurama's abused hole with it. I hurt Konohamaru, Kurama said, barely heard over a surge of rain. Konohamaru is fine. I checked him myself, so don't worry, Naruto said, trying to soothe the demon who he realized was crying earlier, but the rain hid the evidence. You shouldn't blame yourself. I'm happy taking care of you and I won't let you do anything that'll expose you or lead to someone getting hurt, he said and pressed his lips to Kurama's. Despite both being very tired, the kiss became deeper and Naruto lowered Kurama to the wet grass below them. Aha Naru ah. Kurama moaned weakly as Naruto squeezed his sore while nibbling the human ear. Rainfall pounded the pair as even more skin was exposed as Naruto shed his own clothes. Still easy to excite, I see, Naruto said teasingly as he spread the pale legs to view the pink, thoroughly. Kurama blushed at the perverted action. Don't say stuff like that, ah. Kurama screamed into the thunder as a tongue licked his sore hole, easing it into a twitching needy mess. The feeling of the cool rain hitting his flushed skin felt amazing, but that skilled tongue kept him hot and begging. Naruto. He mewed softly and moaned hotly as a flash of lightning revealed the intense blue eyes of his lover. The sight nearly made him cum right then and there, but he held on. At least, until he felt that easily slid into him. A crack of thunder rumbling through the air hid the screams as Kurama was fucked into the grass. The redhead clawed at the ground as he thrashed in pleasure. Finally, the stirring of that thick brought him over the edge and he blacked out before feeling Naruto's cum fill him. Naruto smiled as he held the redhead for a minute, letting the rain continue its assault. 2 clones were created to pack everything away for the mission in a couple hours as he carried Kurama to the bathroom to be cleaned up. Both Konohamaru and Kurama were soon tucked away into cozy beds. By the time he was dressed in a pair of dark crimson Anbu pants, with a short-sleeve mesh top, black ninja sandals and a waist-length black jacket, the clones had everything gathered. Technically he was wearing his own clothes and not the ones he was bought hours earlier, but they were similar so they might not notice. As he put the pack on his back and hid a scroll filled with extra supplies in the hidden pocket inside his jacket, his clone handed him his glasses. Naruto felt a clink behind his ear as he put the glasses on and blushed as he remembered the crystal earpiece. Damn it, sensei. How much did you hear? He yelled after making a hand sign and tapping the crystal. Nothing. He heard his sensei's voice come through a little too quickly and with a dripping sound. Is your nose bleeding? Naruto asked, despite knowing the answer. The silence followed by a perverted snicker and it confirmed what he suspected the dripping was. Naruto rolled his eyes as he adjusted his hair so no one would see the extra crystal. I'm going to meet them, he said, knowing there was no time to sleep in with this sensei, so he had to leave now. There was enough time to eat, before slipping out during a small break in the storm. He raised an eyebrow as he approached 3 human members of Team 8 and 1 canine. Where's Hinata? Kurenai smiled. Oh, Shiza has a cold so she's staying here for this mission. Really? Naruto asked curiously, hiding his suspicions. Maybe we should go say goodbye before. No, that's fine. We should go now before this storm gets worse. Kiba said a little too quickly, getting a bark from Akamaru. What are they planning? Naruto's sensei voiced his suspicions as he followed Shino, Kiba, Akamaru and Kurenai out of the village. After all, it seemed strange that such a close team wouldn't say goodbye to a sick member before leaving. Wow, smells great, Kiba exclaimed excitedly as the meal was cooking over the fire. Can we keep you? The dog ninja said jokingly as he was poured a bowl of the stew. Naruto chuckled as he spooned out the stew for everyone else. Sorry, but I have to go back eventually. Kurenai moaned at the taste of the stew. We'll have to talk to the Hokage about that. About what? It's pretty clear this will be temporary since you said I will be returning for the Chunin exams. Then again, I remember something about Genin teams being restricted to a certain number for a survival reason, so it seems weird that I was allowed to leave. He already knows about this transfer, right? Naruto asked innocently, deliberately putting the sensei on the spot. Of course he does. Kurenai chuckled with a slight nervous tint to her tone. I'm just saying that if you being on a different team is an improvement, something could be worked out. That's all. Going with that, huh? No matter. I'll find out what's going on before this mission is done. Naruto thought, while mentally smirking a smile that did not match the innocent smile on his face. So what's this mission about? We never actually talked about it. Naruto said as he realized the subject has been only random things or subtle comments to try and get some information about him since they left the village hours ago. Kiba blinked. Oh right, Air Sensei, we were briefed, but Kiba winced. It looked like Kurenai was smiling, but if you looked at her foot you'd notice that it was digging into Kiba's heel. We did forget to talk about the briefing for the mission. Kurenai exclaimed louder than necessary. Naruto winced as he focused more on Kiba than Kurenai's attempt to cover up the slip. Briefed, huh? I almost wish you didn't let that slip. Naruto thought, feeling sympathetic towards Kiba despite his strong desire to figure what exactly was going on here. The look of pain and the tiny whimper from holding back the pain made Naruto feel bad for Kiba since he knew how overzealous the Jonin could be. She did drag the blonde nearly a mile to get him to the Hokage Tower, after all. However, since the slip was made and couldn't be taken back, it was best to ponder on the meaning behind it. To Naruto it sounded like they talked about a mission before he met up with them, but Kiba seemed clueless on this mission. Does that mean Team 8 had another mission? A mission Kurenai didn't want him knowing about, perhaps? The possibility put Naruto on high alert. Years of dealing with surprisingly well-organized and manipulative villagers made him more than a little distrustful of any sign of a plot. After all, they could be doing an off-the-books mission to investigate Kurama. Actually, that scenario would explain why Hinata was left behind. If that's what's going on, then Team 8 planned on separating them to investigate, and he can't have that. He had no idea if this was the case since they shouldn't know about Kurama even with that close call at Konohamaru's, but if it was, Naruto was determined to keep Kurama safe. I guess this new team arrangement threw us off. Shino commented matter-of-factly. Yes it has. Kurenai exclaimed, happy one of her students could play along, and was relieved that Naruto seemed to buy the lie. Okay, we're on a treaty-type mission. Kiba groaned a little as he flexed his hurt foot slightly. Treaty what? He said with a strained voice. Poor guy was clearly in pain. Oh, it's just a fancy way to say that we're going to try to negotiate a treaty. Kurenai explained. Shino was the confused one now. Why are we going and not the Hokage? Kurenai smiled. The people we're going to see don't like the Hokage, or any ninjas actually. They're a tribe of people hidden in the southernmost forests. Many villages have tried and failed in some rather embarrassing ways, especially if you consider that no village has ever been get through the civilian level lands. They're civilians. Kiba gaped in shock. It's not too shocking. Civilians can be dangerous. Naruto commented casually. It was out of pure habit. After all, he's used to being with Team 7 who were oblivious to everything about him, and really why should Team 8 be too much different? They had no reason to take that comment as anything other than an innocent comment. At least that's what Naruto thought, but the awkward silence and shift in his new teammates' postures that followed indicated something suspicious. The Jonin cleared her throat almost nervously. Well, yes, but it's hard to explain. This tribe seems to have a way to knock out ninjas before we can get close. They don't seem interested in killing since they haven't killed anyone, but whatever drug they're using is very effective. Our goal is to enter the village and propose a treaty. Sounds fun, right? Kurenai said cheerily. Naruto frowned. They only hate ninjas. They have no issues with other villages or merchants. He asked, trying to recall something Kurama mentioned about a series of tribes when he was a kid. Kurama actually never liked that Naruto wanted to be a ninja for Konoha. After Naruto released him, he tried to convince Naruto to leave the abusive, narrow-minded village in subtle ways, like telling him stories of other places and non-ninja fighters. The only reason Kurama gave up trying to get Naruto to willingly leave the hateful village was the constant effort and care from people like Danzo and Hiruzen. Also, there was that rather shocking discovery of Naruto's crystal release, which required training to control, whether he became a ninja or not. Of course, it wasn't the occupation the demon hated, but more the village itself, which made sense considering how Naruto is treated by the majority of people there. Kurama still stayed despite Naruto making his choice to stay and hasn't left the blonde's side even though he was free. Those thoughts made Naruto feel a warmth in his chest. Actually yes, Kurenai said, not realizing she pulled the blonde out of some very deep thoughts about a certain fox. The Pelotnota tribe is quite open to other travelers even though they're still rather secretive. Civilians can pass through safely, but ninjas are stopped cold before we even reach the borders. Sounds like a very difficult mission. Why are we trying so hard? Shino asked curiously. Safe passage to the mountains to reach other villages and research the plants that we haven't seen before. It is important even though it seems like the Hokage is randomly picking teams for it. At this point he's just trying any team to see if one manages to win their favor. Kurenai admitted, knowing it might be a little disheartening to know the Hokage didn't pick them specifically thinking they'd complete the mission. Of course, she kind of wanted to not let Naruto know that he wasn't even supposed to be on this team, so she had to let him think this was the Hokage's intention for now. Naruto raised an eyebrow and tweaked his rose-tinted glasses. So what's the difference? Why attack ninjas before getting close, but let civilians through? The only thing I can think of is how we travel. Kiba frowned. Could be related to the trees or some sort of markings. My clan has a system of markings on trees surrounding the puppy kennels we protect. We know nothing really, so maybe it's worth walking there. Shino nodded. My clan has a similar system around our hives. It wasn't considered before because they are civilians, but that could be a good idea. It will add a day to our journey if we want to find the road and walk it for the last leg of our trip. Are we in agreement? Kurenai asked and her students nodded along with Akamaru, who wagged his tail happily. Then that's the plan. Oh good. The stew is still warm. Yeah. Lucky. Naruto chuckled, though he was as excited as they thought. In fact, he was suddenly quite nervous. Shit. I forgot to swap the bowls. He thought in a panic as the rest of the team moaned at the scrumptious taste of the food. Who doesn't like a hot meal? Naruto loves a good meal whenever the chance presented itself. To increase the hot meals on a mission, he put heating seals on his bowls and plates so the food would be a little warm even when they couldn't use a fire. Team 7 scarfed down their food too fast to notice, but Team 8 was different. He had to reconsider this before they notice. So what about for tomorrow's meals? We might want to avoid any fires leading up to the tribe's territory. Naruto said pointedly, hoping they'd buy it. Kurenai nodded thoughtfully. Yes. If the people of Pelotnota take offense to something like our choice of travel, we can't risk lighting any fires from here on out. Looks like you may get your favorite, Shino. Oh. Naruto pondered as he looked at the bug ninja who was blushing lightly from the teasing. Kiba smirked. He loves sushi. Really? Sushi it is. Naruto smiled, happy he found an excuse to use cold meals and switch off the damn heat seals, which he did the second he got the empty bowls back for a quick clean. He never noticed that the blush on Shino's cheeks darkened ever slightly when he smiled. Naruto, be careful, Gurren warned through the crystal earpiece. The blonde didn't want to risk being heard, so he tapped out Morse code. Why? We're tracking Hinata and she seems to be testing the civilians, Gurren explained. Testing how exactly? Naruto tapped back, getting a sinking feeling in his gut as they settled in their sleeping bags. We finally found Hinata, she's investigating the civilians. I'm not sure, but by sending out genjutsus of you she's pissing off the civilians and then she's watching the reactions. It's like she's studying them and, by extent, you. They're digging into your life. Gurren said through the crystal. Naruto froze and glanced at the others sleeping in their own sleeping bags. Did she find anything? She discovered that Konohamaru lives in the place you claimed was yours. Unfortunately, she found out before we found her. Gurren reported. Stop her. Naruto tapped quickly. He knew the discovery of one lie will only make it more obvious that there's more out there and he didn't need them getting deeper. I'm on it. Gurren said almost too eagerly, and the evil snicker made Naruto feel sorry for Hinata. Hinata sighed as she finished setting up her campsite. It's done. This'll be my first mission alone. She felt her chest constrict as a wave of anxiety hit her, but she tried to literally shake the feeling away. No, I have to do this. I will do this. After a few deep calming breaths, she set out to see what she could learn about Naruto. To start, she decided to go check the apartment where Naruto lived. However, she decided to go through the village under a henge's Naruto instead of taking the forest path that Naruto used before. It was a decision she instantly regretted. You. Stay away from the Hokage grandson's home. A civilian screamed the second Hinata dropped down from the roofs she was jumping across to walk the little segment of land. You see, there was a section of land between the edge of the village and the area that was destroyed by Kurama. This section was devoid of trees and houses, so even a ninja had to cross on foot. It just so happens a few villagers took it upon themselves to guard the edge to watch out for the demon, and that Konohamaru was safe. The long forest path Naruto showed them before was the only way for him to get through without trouble. The hanged Hinata ducked a rock thrown at her and bolted across the bare section. Just before she got to the tree line, she felt something sharp zip past her head. She pushed herself to move faster and was soon out of range. What was that all about? Hinata gasped as she tried to catch her breath. She dropped the henge and looked back over her shoulder to watch the civilians. What did they mean? The Hokage's grandson? Hinata frowned and looked in the direction of what she thought was Naruto's home. Curiosity led her back to the same building she visited before, and she looked at the building. She activated her Byakugan and searched the building from a safe distance. Each room of the former apartment building was cleaned up and repaired, but it was clearly only for structural purposes. Everything had insulation, exposed drywall, and the pipes were turned off except Naruto's apartment. In fact, everything was cleaner than the last time. That's where Naruto screwed up. After Team 8 left Konohamaru's home, Naruto sent a clone to return everything back where it was. As an added bonus, and a thank you, the clone did some more cleaning and repairs in the rest of the building. You can imagine the problem. Everything in the apartment was completely different than what Hinata saw the first time. Granted, Konohamaru wasn't there, for he was still passed out at Naruto's real home, but it didn't matter since everything from the photos to clothes were back in their rightful places. It was all there for Hinata's all-seeing eyes to see, and it stunned her. When did Naruto change everything back? Actually, when did he set it up for us to see in the first place? We didn't leave him much time coming or going, unless he's working with the Hokage's grandson. Hinata pondered all these questions, but one bothered her more than the others. Why? Why would Naruto bring them to a fake home? It was very puzzling. As Hinata pondered what reasons Naruto, who didn't seem to lie to them, For doing this her mind wandered over back to her rather harsh encounter with the civilians. She was wearing a henge so they thought she was Naruto. Kiba said he saw a slew of hateful stares at Naruto and the civilians are good at hiding it. If she wanted answers, that's where she needs to start. This time she just went along the edge of the village, snuck in through a few side streets until she was in the middle of the village. After finding a nice alley to hide in, she cast a genjutsu that looked like Naruto over some of the shoppers in the busy area. She peeked out from her hiding spot to watch safely. To her horror, the civilians didn't just glare hatefully. They were borderline homicidal. Oh God, I should write what they're saying down. She gasped and took out a little notebook she kept in her jacket and wrote down everything. With a few genjutsus and a few location changes, she had a notebook filled to the brim with the most gruesome things. From attempted murder to hateful screams, the truth behind the innocent civilians' faces was all there to view, but there was no obvious motive for it. They called Naruto a demon, but why? Hinata frowned and got ready to choose a new spot to mess with the civilians, but a hunch of dust fell on her head. What the? She started coughing and her nose began running as she shook the dust off. Hinata, are you really sick? Why didn't you tell me? A very scared Hinata looked up to see her father running over to her. No, I'm fine. She yelped and tried to look fine, but whatever that dust was made her stuffed up, sound like her throat was sore and flushed. She looked and sounded like a person suffering with a bad cold. Hiyashi rushed forward faster than Hinata could get away and touched her forehead. Someone told me they heard you were sick and not on the mission you told me you were going on with your team, but I didn't believe them until now. You have a fever. Come on. We're going home and you're going to bed. I'll have a stern talk with your sensei about this. She should have told me instead of letting you. What were you doing? Hinata gulped. She couldn't say she was investigating Naruto. I was training. In your condition. Home now. To prevent any arguments, Hiyashi threw her over his shoulder and took her away, unfortunately making her drop her notebook. Before any civilian could see the book, Gurren picked it up. That'll keep her busy for a while. She smirked as she jumped away. Hiyashi was always a calm, but ever since his wife became sick and died years ago, he's been extra vigilant of his daughter's health. If he so much as thinks he hears a sniffle, he's panicking. The dust Gurren tossed on Hinata replicated flu and cold symptoms. It won't last long, but Hisahi won't let her out of his sight for a while. She was right to go straight to Hiyashi right after warning Naruto that she saw Hinata playing with genjutsus. Hinata didn't know it, but each time she stirred up the civilians, she was making everything for Naruto more dangerous. It's going to be too dangerous to come right back as it was. With that problem out of the way, let's see how bad the damage is. Gurren didn't even slow down as she looked through the notebook. Damn, she has a lot on the civilians, but... Of course, Gurren already knew that Naruto used Konohamaru's home as a cover. It was an easy conclusion make when they found her going around the village from the direction of Konohamaru's apartment. Looking on the bright side, however, Gurren was pleased to see Hinata didn't try finding Naruto's new home, and she had no clue why the civilians act the way they do. Now Naruto just has to be careful on his end. XXXXXXXXX. Naruto frowned as they stopped to camp for the last time before getting to their destination. Pelinota, I know I heard that before. Kurama told me about that village. Let's see, I think it was an herbalist type and very powerful. There's something about insects. I remember singing the tongue twister Kurama told me, pollen peppering of pretty purple posies poses petals. I remember him talking about a pollinating ritual, but not much else. Come to think of it, that was the only non-ninja village Kurama didn't gush about. Hey Naruto, would you like to start the meal? Kurenai shook her head. Naruto shouldn't cook every meal, Kiba. I don't mind. Besides, we're almost there. Naruto chuckled. Secretly he had another reason to want to cook for Team 8, and that was Shino. He didn't understand what was so funny about Shino liking sushi until he made some, and it's very cute. Shino doesn't just love sushi and shrimp, but he has a love so strong he actually subconsciously orders his insects to steal from other people's plates. Even as Naruto started making the meal, he noticed the insects creeping closer to get ready to pounce and get the first treat to Shino. Shino, quite adorably by the way, looked only mildly embarrassed about his insect's actions. Okay, we'll be there with only a 2-hour walk. I say we wake up very early and get there once the sun comes up. Kurenai mused out loud, grabbing her meal before Shino's insects could get to it. Kiba actually had to catch his meal because Naruto threw it to keep the insects off it. Thanks, man. Now why do we have to get there so early? Kiba asked curiously. Kurenai sighed. We want to show that we respect their schedules and that we'll come at an early hour instead of late. Naruto twitched as a team of insects made off with his shrimp roll even though Shino had a full plate of his own. Makes sense. We can't expect to be seen right away or at all, but at show we're determined to wait our turn. Naruto smirked at Shino when he saw that another shrimp from his plate was gone. Need any more? Shino just blushed, didn't look at that sorry. Despite the sushi and shrimp theft, they went to their tents with full stomachs, and by the morning they were ready for the last leg of their trip. They had everything set and walked casually down the path towards Peladnoda. Kurenai was tense for those few hours. She expected to be caught like the many other ninjas before them, but nothing happened. It wasn't long before they were safely coming towards beautiful gate that were lined with every vine of flower imaginable. They like insects here, so maybe Shino should lead from this point on. Naruto said as the gates opened to let them in, and he quickly regretted it. How do you know? Kurenai asked, curious as to why Naruto would be so confident about something like that when no ninja has ever been here before. Naruto mentally smacked himself. He couldn't tell them that a demon told him stories of places all over the world, so he did what he was good at, thought up an excuse. The bee boxes, he said, and pointed to a thing that looked like a bird house with hundreds of bees going in and out of it. If he wasn't looking carefully for an excuse, he might have missed it. Kiba blinked. Wow, good eyes. I didn't even notice. Akamaru barked cheerfully, and a vein on Kiba's forehead swelled in anger. Hey, what do you mean that's no surprise? I'm observant, damn it. Kurenai chuckled and looked at Naruto as Kiba continued arguing with his canine companion. I'm glad to see that your glasses are helping. She commented and gave Shino a nod, silently giving him the reins. Welcome to Peladnoda. How can I help you? The one guard off to the side asked as the other guards remained at their posts. Shino nodded as he pondered how to word what he wanted to say. Yes. We're ninjas from Konoha. The guard gaped. Ninjas, huh? No offense, but I expected a ruder encounter from ninjas. Understandable. Shino commented. While adjusting his glasses, he let a few insects crawl out of his sleeve. The action seemed to intrigue the guard, and it seems Naruto was right again. I'm Shino Aburame from the insect-using clan in Konoha. My team and I are here to ask for a treaty. Is there a way we can speak to someone about that? We're happy to wait until it's convenient, he said politely, leaning on the insect appreciation by releasing a few more beetles. Normally I'd say to wait, the guard sighed as a beetle landed on his hand. The Red Admiral is usually taking the day off on Sundays, but I'm sure he'd like to meet you. Please, follow me. They followed the guard all the way to the lobby of a large hive-shaped building filled with busy people, and that's where the guard asked them to wait. The guard only left for a few minutes and, much to their excitement, they were told that they could meet the Red Admiral. That's when they were escorted to the large screened-in gazebo behind the building. In the middle of the flower-filled gazebo was an old man sipping some tea and watching a caterpillar spin its chrysalis. The old man wore brown robes with a thick black stripe speckled with white spots along the bottom. The back had a large orange print of a butterfly. It was an interesting ensemble, but the ninjas knew not to comment on it. They remained silent until they were spoken to. Just by chance, Shino saw a leaf from a dry milkweed stalk break, taking a chrysalis and caterpillar down to the floor. The insect user released a few insects and had them pick up the caterpillar. With great care, the beetles set the caterpillar gently on a fresher milkweed plant. The beetles then took the chrysalis off the dead leaf and altadena it to the rafters, which was apparently where all the chrysalises are moved to. Only then did the old man look at them. The Red Admiral eyed Shino. Go through the pollen ritual and you have your treaty. Shino nodded. Pick a second and only you two will come with me. Considering Naruto has had a lot of great intuition so far, Shino immediately turned to the blonde. Naruto, would you like to join? Naruto nodded politely and the two ninjas followed the Red Admiral to a shrine deep in the forest. The second Naruto walked in that shrine he realized two things. 1. That Kurama never said much about this village because it wasn't something you tell a child. 2. He remembered that there was another word in the tongue twister he didn't recall until now, perverted pollen peppering of pretty purple posies poses petals. Shino just stared at the bizarre object in the shrine. Have you ever seen a spider hanging from the ceiling rafters with its legs dangling in the air? It looked like that. Just 8 long slender metal bars, 2 sets of 4 curved towards each other, in the middle of the shrine ceiling over a small circular podium. The legs had straps and cuffs at the tips as if someone was meant to be strapped in. So these go around the waist and connect, correct? Yes. You seem familiar with this setup. The bug user was only vaguely aware of Naruto talking to the Red Admiral. He was too busy staring at the body of the spider, which was a circular track going across 2 rafters that will let the contraption turn a full 360 degrees around the podium to view the entire flower-filled room. Yes, flowers. It just so happens there was no floor to the shrine. It was just a field of purple buds with that spidery thing dangling in the center over the short podium and a few stepping stones leading to the podium. Granted, those things weren't enough to really get a great idea of what was meant to happen, but the walls had screens with graphic pictures of men strapped in the spider that described everything. Okay, I strap, inject and spin. I need to spin him to get as much as possible. At least half. The items I mentioned are in the podium, understand? Yeah. Shino. Finally, the bug user tore his eyes away from the contraption and started walking over the stepping stones towards the short circular podium. We have to do this. He noticed no one was walking behind him and looked over his shoulder. Shino winced when he saw Naruto staring at the ceiling, which was mostly skylights save for the supporting rafters, running his fingers through his blonde hair almost out of frustration. Naruto sighed. Yeah, I know. He said as he followed. It didn't occur to Jim that Shino immediately thought that the blonde was dreading doing this with a bug user. Of course, why would Naruto think that? Naruto never had an issue with insects, though he was dreading an issue. He was wondering how the hell he was going to explain this to Kurama. Okay, you have to strip and I hook you in. Are you sure you can figure this thing out? A very nervous Shino asked as he slowly took off his jacket. It's not too different from any other things I've seen. Just a big swing, the blonde said as he shrugged casually. Why, you've done this before? Shino uncharacteristically yelped. Well, not this exact setup, but, Naruto blinked as he realized Shino may not be talking about the setup. Shino, have you had before? Shino flinched and nervously adjusted his glasses. No. Oh. Naruto winced as the awkward feeling lingered a moment. It wasn't shameful to be a virgin. Not by any means. However, he doubted this was what Shino had in mind when he thought of his first time. The Red Admiral said we can't back out now that we know their ritual. I could try and do what I can with clones if you don't. I'll be fine, Shino said quickly, but he still didn't make eye contact with the blonde. The village needs this treaty, he said, determined to complete this mission. Naruto frowned as he watched the bug ninja strip quietly, almost awkwardly. When Shino was completely, save for one thing, Naruto stepped forward, the glasses too. The bug user flinched and touched his glasses hesitantly. Right. It took him a moment, but he finally relinquished his glasses. However, Shino did keep his eyes shut, not letting Naruto see his eyes, but that meant he didn't see the blonde lean over. He didn't realize what had happened until he felt pressure on his lips, and when he did, he pulled back in shock. What are you doing? Just thought this should start before I put you in that thing. Besides, you need to relax. Naruto said calmly. When Shino saw the blonde leaned over again to kiss him, you have to do that if you don't like my insects. Shino said softly. The sharp feeling of hurt he felt actually took him by surprise. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I don't have an issue. It's fine, Naruto. A lot of people do. Shino said as he turned to step onto the podium. Of course, he stubbornly had his eyes closed and didn't judge the height of the podium properly. It was taller than an average step, so he ended up tripping. To his surprise, Naruto caught him around the waist and in an instant he was pinned to the flat podium surface with Naruto between his legs. How about this? I won't let you go until you tell me what I did or said to make you think that. The blonde said, holding the Shino's wrists to the sides and trying to make eye contact through the closed eyes. Shino gasped as Naruto shifted, brushing their crotches together. It wasn't a big deal for the fully dressed blonde, but the insect user was quite vulnerable. Don't move. Ah, no. The slight friction to his crotch sent shivers down his spine and a few insects scurrying out of him. To his surprise, Naruto continued rocking against him despite clearly seeing the insects flow out of him. Naruto. My insects, ah. I know. Tell me. Naruto said softly before finding and sucking on a sensitive spot right on the junction between Shino's head and neck, not caring about the beetles scuttling around. A flush came to those pale cheeks. UNGH looked frustrated before ah. Naruto pulled back suddenly. So that's it. He blinked as the adorably horny insect user mewled cutely. He chuckled. I have no issue. Now, he leaned over and whispered into Shino's ear. Do you want to do this ritual with me? Okay. A flushed Shino whimpered as he stared into those blue eyes. The insect user took a second to realize that his eyes were open, revealing his deep honey-colored eyes with hexagon-shaped flecks. By the time he did, it was far too late. He tried to look away, but those warm lips captured his own again and a tongue pushed its way into mouth. As the tongue coaxed his own into playing together, he felt Naruto's arms wrap around his waist when his back arched slightly. Before he could process it, he was lifted up to his feet. The blonde broke the kiss and smiled at the glazed honey eyes of the whimpering insect user. Trust me. I'll make this as easy as it can be, he said as he turned Shino around. When the spider contraption came into view, Shino felt his heart race. One by one the straps were wrapped around his wrists, chest, waist and ankles. Soon he was hanging comfortably over the flowers with his limbs spread wide, but what made him blush was that Naruto was between his legs. The blonde could see everything from his to his virgin pucker while Shino was left looking down at the flowers. Things didn't move on like he expected though. What's that? Shino gasped as he felt something cold slid into him. Naruto chuckled. You weren't listening to the Red Admiral, were you? He said as he pushed the rest of the soft syringe tip into Shino, making those pale hips wiggle. This is just a muscle relaxant and lube. Just hold still. Easy for you. Shino snapped his mouth shut to stop the moan as a cool fluid was pumped into him. His eyes widened as he felt the syringe being pulled out and panicked, thinking everything would embarrassingly flow out. Don't take it out. He yelped as Naruto thrust the syringe in and out. Soon his body started relaxing and getting very hot. Naruto can't ngh ha. Once he was sure the relaxant was absorbed, Naruto pulled the syringe out. Damn. That's an effective relaxant, he commented as he could tell the twitching pucker was looser with only sight. Without warning, he pushed 2 fingers in the hot twitching channel and was happy to feel them slid in deep easily, but immediately felt the channel become very tight and heard Shino scream. Shino, you're orgasmed. Naruto concluded almost in fascination as he watched his fingers disappear and reappear in Shino's over and over again. Every few thrusts made the hot hole crush his fingers and a gush of pre-cum would spray onto the purple buds, making them bloom. However, his was still hard to spot, gushing wildly. It's stuff ah. Shino responded incoherently. It was just a blast of pure pleasure over and over. As Naruto sped up the motion, it turned into an endless flow of pleasure. It was making him moan and writhe. No, relaxants don't do this. They just take the pain. Naruto said, casualty finally breaking his daze and pulling his fingers out, getting a desperate cry from Shino. It's okay. You'll feel more, he said as he pulled out his heart and thrust hard into the channel, making Shino come with a scream and a lot of flowers bloom. Kurama's eyelids fluttered open and the dazed red orb stared at the ceiling for a while. It wasn't until a breeze went through the open window that the eyes became focused enough to take in the details around the room. However, the most interesting detail seemed to be the actual window allowing the breeze in. The demon slowly stood up and touched the sill. After running his slender fingers over the wood and up the track for the window, he slowly shut it. You noticed, I assume. Kurama turned towards the door where he smelled Danzo's scent coming from the other side. That's something we need to discuss. The demon hummed, of course. Kurama went to dress and after putting some jeans and a shirt on, he left the room. He paused in the hall briefly before continuing down to the kitchen where Hiruzen and Danzo waited. Konohamaru is still out cold. I'm so sorry. The demon said, genuinely saddened. Hiruzen chuckled as he looked up from the notebook he was looking at. We know you can't help it. Also, he isn't still out because of you. He actually woke a day after Naruto left. Kurama quirked an eyebrow at the amusement on the Hokage's face. I'm glad he wasn't terribly affected by me, but why is he still here and in bed? Thank you. He gratefully took the cup of tea from Danzo, who brought a tray of cups and a kettle over. When my dear shy grandson woke up, he apparently remembered something that happened between him and Naruto and fainted. He has refused to leave since. Hiruzen laughed. I see. Kurama chuckled and heard the young man hiding upstairs mumble in embarrassment. You know, I never considered it before, but if Naruto wants more than one partner, I don't mind. Naruto is good at team playing with those clones. He said loud enough for Konohamaru to hear, getting another whimper for the embarrassed ninja. The older beings, human and demon, amusement subsided. The air became serious. One of them came through my window. Danzo sighed. We got here before Naruto left the gate and found you and Konohamaru tucked in bed. It was raining when Naruto, the old root leader, blushed with a cough, said goodbye to you. There was no reason for the window to be open then. I tried to shut it without disturbing the scent, but they came back, didn't they? Kurama said and sipped his tea calmly. This was my fault. I'll help hunt them after Konohamaru is home. We only had a report involving one escaped patient. Can you identify how many and who? Danzo asked, clearly concerned about the topic at hand. 3, but their scents were too muddled to know if they're working together or not. I know them though. They were the first to handle my heat. Kurama said and continued drinking his tea. Hiruzen frowned. Perhaps you should pull a few agents off Kakashi to handle this, or those watching Hinata, since she's not going anywhere with her father watching her. I understand Kakashi having agents tailing him, but why Hinata? The second he said that name, Kurama recognized the female's scent coming from the notebook. In an instant he was behind Hiruzen, looking over the Hokage's shoulder. Why does this notebook detail attacks against Naruto? The two old humans chuckled nervously. It's a funny story. I have a feeling I'm not going to see the humor. Kurama said, his red eyes narrowed in on the two, waiting for an explanation.